For 20 days, the economic damage was about blocked shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, but that has changed. A major escalation in the Middle East. Iran bombed the world's largest LNG facility in Qatar and is now threatening the world's energy supply. And the president is delivering a consequential economic ultimatum. Welcome to the Big Money Show, everyone. I'm Jackie DeAngelis, along with my co-hosts Taylor Riggs, David Asman, Brian Bremberg, and with us for the hour, Barron's Investor Circle newsletter editor, Josh Schaefer.
All right. Good to be back.
Iran launching missile strikes on critical energy infrastructure in the Middle East, including Qatar's massive LNG facility. It's one of the most important LNG facilities on the planet, responsible for 20% of the world's entire LNG supply. Brent crude is up over $110 per barrel. European natural gas surged 15%. Secretary Hegseth and General Kane say U.S. strike missions are going deeper into Iran. Vice President J.D. Vance warns the next few weeks at the pump could be more painful.
We recognize this is an issue. We are fighting against it, and we promise that when this conflict draws to a close, when this operation draws to a close, we're going to see those energy prices come back down to reality, because that's what the president promised to do. He delivered an energy-dominant agenda. It's made us much more secure in the face of these things. But yeah, we've got a rough road ahead of us for the next few weeks, but it's temporary.
And that's because the price of oil hinges on global markets, speculators. What's happening abroad does impact us here, Josh, even if we don't necessarily use the oil that comes out of the Strait of Hormuz. So this was a significant escalation. Yesterday, I was reporting that the Iranians had warned these refineries in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, and the UAE to get people out of there, that they were on the radar. And then with this escalation of Israel going after the Iranian field, they did go after Qatar, and now you've got oil prices near $100 a barrel. I'm talking West Texas right now. Pain at the pump is a real thing for most folks, even though the administration is telling us that it will be temporary. Having said that, do you feel like this escalation might be the hinge of a turning point that we weren't necessarily anticipating?
I think it might be a turning point that we weren't necessarily anticipating, and I also think it's an interesting turning point, Jackie, when we think about the U.S. in oil versus the rest of the world in oil, right? So if you look at those oil prices, you cited both Brent and crude at different times, right? What's been interesting is the divergence between Brent and WTI over the last 24 hours. So you've seen a larger spike in Brent than you've seen in WTI, which I think speaks to WTI, of course, being the U.S. benchmark. It speaks to how this is a different story for the U.S. than perhaps the rest of the world. I also think when you've seen the market reaction over the last 24 hours, if you look at U.S. stocks, the S&P 500 is down about 0.3% right now. It's not really trading as much on this escalation. But if you took a look at something like the ACWI ex-U.S., you look at broader equities across the world, those are being weighed down a lot more. So I think what you're seeing is escalation that perhaps has broader implications, and then you wonder what that trickles down to for the U.S., but perhaps more concerning if you were in, say, Europe, or you're investing in European equities, et cetera.
All right, so what does this mean at the pump? The national average for a gallon of regular is now $3.88. Brian, you asked me what was kind of my uh-oh number on oil.
Yeah.
I told you, but I have an uh-oh on gas prices, and it's $4.
Yep,
so
that sounds uh-oh.
We're getting there pretty quickly.
Yep.
Having said that, on Mornings with Maria this morning, Scott Bessent was talking about some innovative ways to potentially ease what we're feeling at the pump with supplies. Do we have that soundbite?
We may unsanction the Iranian oil that's on the water. It's about 140 million barrels. So depending on how you count it, that's 10 days to 2 weeks of supply that the Iranians had been pushing out. That would have all gone to China. In essence, we will be using the Iranian barrels against the Iranians to keep the price down for the next 10 or 14 days as we continue this campaign.
Now, I'm interested in that and less about what he was talking about tapping the SPR, because that to me is using their own ammunition against them.
Yeah, I mean, all these temporary things are great. I think they'll help on the margin a little bit, but we've already started doing some of these things, and you still got gas at $3.83.
Yeah.
You still got diesel above $5.
88.
$3.88. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. So The Europeans got together today. They're having an energy summit. You were going to talk about this, I bet, weren't you? They're going to get, you know what they're looking for?
I just love that it's like taking them 15 days after the war to convene on an energy summit.
Okay.
But please, go ahead.
They're very quick. They respond very quickly. They're having a summit. The headlines say they're looking for quick fixes. Okay. Here's the punchline. There's no quick fix to any of this. Europe, there's no quick fix. America, there's no quick fix. There is one fix: opening the Strait of Hormuz. So is that going to happen or not? I'm a little more heartened today than I was yesterday. Why? Because Japan's prime minister is in the Oval Office with the president, okay? They're really good at demining straits. They've got a great Navy. Show up and help. You've got the UK finally starting to say, we want to help with coordination and planning. They're too slow, Taylor, but I don't care. They're finally showing up to the table. I think Trump is going to browbeat all of these guys into showing up at the Strait and pitching in a little bit, and you're going to get it open. But until you do that, none of this stuff is going to, it just isn't going to matter. It's going to matter cents on the dollars. Nobody cares about that. They want oil prices back down from 100, closer to 70 or 60. And the only way you get that is if you destroy Iran's capability to muddle things up in the Strait.
Okay, and I think there's a lot of confidence in the U.S. and Israel's ability to do that. President Trump has certainly demonstrated that he is one to be able to wrangle forces to see, you know, the goal of his initiative. I have confidence in that. But Taylor, we're looking at these markets, we're looking at oil prices, and the situation is becoming increasingly unnerving.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
Duration, we've said, is the issue here. If you have faith in the duration, then we have to just kind of hold on to the roller coaster ride a little bit longer. If we don't,
yeah, so maybe a couple more weeks. I think it's interesting when we're talking about who's our ally and who isn't. The Qatari foreign prime minister actually is pretty ticked off at Iran. Earlier, it said, diplomacy must be made on mutual respect, but Iran has destroyed our trust with this is aggression, and trust now needs to be rebuilt. So they are really ticked off about the targeting of what Iran is saying, the U.S. linked LNG, but it's on the Qatari soil, and they are not happy. So it's very interesting about who's really
How are they going to be rebuild
around.
trust with Iran?
I don't think they are.
I think you got to like get rid of the guy you used to trust, admit it was a failure, and find somebody else to trust.
Would you have gone out on a limb a couple years ago and say Qatar would be like saying angry words with Iran after and like kind of taking our side? Anyway, so let's talk about the markets, Jackie, because this is all linked together. I got very nervous yesterday with the PPI, and I got a little bit nervous this morning because at one point...
You get too nervous.
I know. I'm a Wednesday child. Wednesday's child is full of woe, as my parents know. Gold is down because interest rates are high. Why are you guys laughing at me?
I don't know what that means.
We're stuck on Wednesdays later.
That was the first
worry ward.
Were you born on a Wednesday?
Yes,
We'll go
that's
with
what that means. Keep up.
I'm looking
Let's
it up.
keep up with these markets. So if the Fed isn't cutting and rates are staying higher, that's when you saw gold fall. What I also didn't like is earlier this morning, you had bond yields across the U.S. up as much as 10 basis points on the day. Now, that has calmed down a little bit. You're only up 6 basis points on the 2-year and trying to get back to unchanged on the day for a 10-year. But the bond market was really pricing in some inflationary risk. Now my worry, Jackie, is with 2-year yields up and 10 and 30-year yields stable or lower, are they pricing in recessionary risk, slowing growth on the horizon? With that, you had aluminum, copper, down as much as 10% earlier today. That's a demand shock. That's pricing in slower growth. So those were a few of the cross-asset signals today that I did not like at all. Now, some of that has calmed down from earlier this morning. We're seeing a little bit more stability this afternoon. That gives me hope, I think, is some calmness. Calmer heads are trying to prevail. But this hasn't just been an equity sell-off. This has been sort of cross-asset, a few different signals that I don't like what I'm seeing.
And Taylor brings up the PPI, David. We're looking at diesel prices up since the Iran strikes started, almost 36%. So that has an impact on businesses. That has an impact on any business
everything that we buy that comes off a truck.
Right,
Everything
that makes something. They're using oil, diesel, all of these things to get it around. And so I'm looking at this and thinking to myself, This is a problem for the president on the home front that he's got to tackle. Now, if you think this is over in 14 days, he just has to kind of manage people for 14 days.
Well, I'm gonna double up on your worrywart-ness.
Okay.
Wait, were you born on a Wednesday?
There are two things. No, I think I was born on a Monday, but there are two things that worry me greatly. One is that the Israelis did this without the president knowing about it. That's
Agreed.
what he said. They're supposed to act in tandem, and that is so important in this battle because they are our only active ally in this battle against Iran. And apparently they did not act in tandem. And the president pointed that out in the Truth Social post he put out last night. So that's one concern. The other concern is he's trying to reach out in this post to the Iranians saying, look, we're not going to target the civilian infrastructure again. That was a mistake. He said that was a mistake. The focus has got to be on the military, on their hardware that they are using to attack their neighbors and to possibly cause harm to the rest of the world, and certainly to build up what is left of their nuclear infrastructure. But it leads to a key question. This is one of the greatest concerns I think he has in dealing with Iran. Who is he dealing with?
Right.
I mean, you have two centers of power in Iran. You have the old Ayatollah group, which is one by one being killed off, and then you have the military, the Revolutionary Guard. They clearly are the ones in control right now, the Revolutionary Guard. So there has already been a switch, and I got a sense from the Truth Social that he was kind of reaching out to try to figure out who it is he's talking to in there, convincing them that, in fact, the civilian infrastructure is not going to be a target unless, and this was his punchline to this long post he put out, he said, unless you start to hit your neighbors again, who are our allies because of the Abraham Accords, if you do that, we're going to knock the hell out of you. We're going to go for everything you have, including the South Pars gas plant, which they have there, that was targeted. He said the targeting was a mistake. It won't happen again unless you hit back. So these are things to be concerned about. Bottom line is we have the deadline, our political deadline in this country that I think the White House is thinking of very carefully are the midterms. They're 8 months away, but time is wasted. And there does seem to be a switch of morale among the people, even people who are supportive of what the president is doing. We got to start to see an end game.
I hear you on that, and we cover it every day. We're following it step by step. We'll have all the latest for you at home and the context of what it means. Meantime, as the situation in the Middle East continues to evolve, join Fox in supporting our troops. From daily needs to global emergencies, help us be there for those who serve. Scan the QR code or go to go.fox/Red Cross to donate to service the armed forces today. Meantime, Taylor, markets, Dow's down 319. You're looking at Micron.
Huge. And talk about a blowout earnings report, Josh, but then Micron falls 5.5% in part because there's been a massive run up in stocks like these for memory chips. But they are, despite a massive beat and good guidance, forecasting CapEx spend to be about $25 billion. The market wanted $22 to $23 billion. So they dragged down all of the other memory chip makers. SanDisk has been on a tear with them. Is this just a cooling off from a stock that's doubled, tripled?
I think so, but in the sort of worries that we're talking about here too, right, is you can add in everything that we just talked about in terms of then what it means for investor sentiment, right? I was speaking with investors throughout the early part of this week, and they said, well, there's sort of this cloud on me being willing to go risk on here right now, right? And so I want to figure out this situation a little bit more. The running market consensus is still this ends pretty quickly, but if it doesn't, how risk on can I really be into a tech name that's up over 300% over the last year, right? You need some of these issues to resolve. Otherwise, you're not going to get risk on in the markets. And then there's an economic risk that is involved in that too, right? If people don't want to keep staying in U.S. equities.
Interesting.
That's smart.
All right. Well, we want to hear from you. So if you have questions or comments, go over to our X or Instagram page and leave those there. We will answer your questions tomorrow in our Ask Us Anything segment. But first, the DHS shutdown continues and it's causing a travel nightmare. We bring you the latest when we return.